The spatula clattered to the kitchen floor like a death knell. One moment, Dad was flipping pancakes, shaped like cartoon faces. The next, he was clutching his chest, his face twisted in agony. The ambulance sirens still echo in my nightmares. I'm Alex Chen. And that morning changed everything. At 6 years old, I watched my father die of a massive heart attack while making Sunday breakfast. Mom crumbled for exactly 3 months before she met Jake at a grief counseling group. He seemed decent enough tall, kind eyes, the type of man who'd never hurt a fly. They married within a year. Then came the bombshell. Mom was pregnant. "You're going to have a little brother," she announced, her face glowing like she'd won the lottery. That's when 8-year-old me learned what it meant to become invisible. Ryan arrived like a tornado. And suddenly I didn't exist. Mom quit her teaching job, something she'd never done for me. "The first years are crucial," she'd say. As if my first years had been worthless practice runs. I'd come home from school to find my lunch forgotten, my homework ignored, my existence erased by the golden child's every whimper. Jake noticed. God bless him. He tried. Sometimes people get so focused on one thing, they miss everything else. He'd whisper while helping me with math homework, his eyes darting toward Mom as she obsessed over Ryan's every breath. The argument started when Ryan turned 5. Jake suggested Little League Baseball. Mom's reaction was nuclear. "Are you insane? He could get hurt, he could break something. He's too precious for that violence." Instead, she enrolled Ryan in art classes. I watched through the window as he sulked through every session, half-heartedly dragging brushes across paper while other kids actually tried to learn. He quit after 3 lessons. Mom blamed the teacher for failing to recognize his artistic genius. Meanwhile, Jake became my lifeline. He drove me to karate classes 3 times a week, cheered louder than anyone when I earned new belts, and filled the father-shaped hole in my heart. But every victory felt hollow when I'd come home to find Ryan's room destroyed and Mom's expectant stare. "Alex, be a good big sister and clean up Ryan's mess," she'd command. I've not asked. When Jake finally snapped, "She's not his personal maid." Mom played her trump card tears. "I knew it." She sobbed dramatically. "You love her more than your own son. How can you be so cruel?" To Ryan, Jake's shoulders sagged in defeat. He looked at me with apologetic eyes and whispered, "Do whatever your mother says." That was the moment I learned that even good men have their breaking point. Graduation day came with bittersweet clarity. Jake sat in the front row, beaming with pride while Mom constantly checked her phone, texting updates to Ryan's babysitter. That evening, Jake called me into his office. "I've been saving," he said, sliding college brochures across his desk. "You can go anywhere. Alex, the sky's the limit." Before I could respond, Mom burst in like an avenging angel. "That money belongs to Ryan's future. He needs it more than she does." Jake's jaw set like concrete. "This isn't up for discussion. Sarah, I've made my decision." I chose State University in Pennsylvania, close enough to visit Jake regularly, far enough to have my own life. Mom couldn't come to move-in day because Ryan was having separation anxiety. Jake helped me carry boxes to my dorm room. And for the first time in years, I felt hope. College was my salvation. I threw myself into finance. I discovered I had a talent for numbers, for making money work. I called home weekly, but only spoke to Jake. Mom was always too busy with Ryan to talk. "Your brother's going through a rough patch," Jake explained during one call, exhaustion bleeding through his voice. "He's hanging with the wrong crowd. I tried getting him into school activities. But your mother let me guess." I interrupted. "You're being too strict." "Exactly." His sigh could have powered a wind turbine. I visited less and less. Ryan had transformed into a pale, angry creature who barely acknowledged my existence. locked away playing violent video games, while Mom made endless excuses. "He's just stressed," she'd say. As gunfire blared from his room, the contrast was staggering. While I was building a career at a regional investment firm, Ryan was achieving only virtual victories. By 25, I was making decent money as a financial advisor, while 21-year-old Ryan couldn't hold a part-time job. When I finally saved enough for my own apartment, a modest 2-bedroom in a decent neighborhood, I invited everyone for a housewarming party. "We can't come," Mom said, without hesitation. "Ryan has plans." "What plans?" I pressed. "Very important ones," she replied vaguely, as video game explosions echoed in the background. Only Jake showed up, carrying a bottle of wine and an orchid. "Your mother sends her love," he lied. And we both knew it. Over dinner, Jake revealed the truth about home life. Ryan had dropped out of community college and spent his days gambling or drinking with degenerates. "I offered him work at my construction company," Jake said. "Twirling pasta. Entry level. Just to start somewhere." But Sarah said it was beneath him. "So, he's too good for honest work, but not too good to be a burden?" I asked. Jake smiled sadly. "I keep trying. Alex, God knows I keep trying." That was our last real conversation. The call came on a Tuesday. Jake had collapsed at a job site. Massive coronary. Just like my father. By the time I reached the hospital, he was gone. History had a sick sense of humor. Mom's performance at the funeral was Oscar-worthy. She wailed about their perfect marriage and devastating loss while I watched with contempt and pity. She wasn't mourning Jake, she was mourning his paycheck. Ryan couldn't even dress appropriately, showing up in wrinkled khakis and a stained t-shirt, glued to his phone while Mom made excuses about his unique way of processing grief. Standing at Jake's grave, I realized the pattern: another father, another heart attack, another funeral. But this time, I was old enough to see through Mom's tears to the dollar signs in her eyes. Contact dwindled to nothing after the funeral. I only heard updates through Aunt Linda's gossip calls. "They're burning through Jake's savings," she reported. "Sarah sold his truck last month, his tools the month before." Then, out of nowhere, Mom called. "Alex." Her voice was smaller than I remembered. "Please come home." Something in her tone made me drive the 2 hours back to our old house. The place looked like a crime scene. Jake's meticulously maintained garden was now a jungle. Paint peeled from shutters, and one hung broken, like a wounded bird. But the house wasn't the only casualty. Mom had aged 20 years in 2. Deep lines carved her face. Gray roots showed through cheap box dye, and her clothes hung loose on her shrinking frame. The woman who once made me rewash dishes for water spots now lived in squalor. Dirty plates towered in the sink. Dust coated everything, and the whole place reeked of neglect. "We're broke," she whispered, collapsing into tears. "My pension barely covers utilities. The savings are gone." "What about Ryan?" I asked. Though I already knew, her face hardened with familiar defensiveness. "He's looking for work. Employers just don't understand his potential." "His potential for what? Professional gaming?" "You don't understand anything," she snapped. "He's brilliant. These companies want him to do physical labor or wake up at 8 a.m. He's not built for that kind of work." I wanted to scream that, at 22, with no skills or experience, he couldn't afford to be picky. Instead, I asked, "How much do you need?" $800 a month, she said, barely meeting my eyes. It was a significant chunk of my income. But looking at her desperate face, I nodded. "Where's Ryan now?" "Job interview at a tech company." "Very promising." I glanced at his room where the computer screen still flickered. Some things never changed. I set up the automatic transfer that same day. Every month, $800 disappeared from my account into the black hole of their dysfunction. I started visiting more often, each trip feeling like time travel to a nightmare version of my childhood. Ryan remained exactly the same, pale, surly, alternating between video games and beer. When I'd ask about job hunting, he'd grunt mind your own business or turn up his speakers. The holidays arrived with fresh horrors. The house was literally falling apart, peeling wallpaper, water stains spreading across the ceiling like cancer. I used my Christmas bonus to hire contractors and restore some dignity to the place. When Mom sprained her ankle in February, I hired a caregiver for 3 weeks. My vacation fund went to keeping her mobile and fed in Enster. Then came the surprise that shouldn't have surprised me. I walked into the house and found a stranger sprawled on the couch, bleached blonde hair, fake nails like weapons, clothes that screamed trouble. She was surrounded by empty junk food containers, scrolling through her phone like she owned the place. "Who are you?" I demanded. Ryan shuffled out of his cave. "This is Mia, my girlfriend. She's staying here." Mia didn't even look up from her phone, just popped her gum loudly and reached into the grocery bag I'd brought, pulling out the expensive cookies I'd bought specifically for Mom. How wonderful, Mom gushed when I called her later. "Ryan's finally settling down. Mia is such a good influence. He hasn't been drinking with those awful friends in weeks, because now he drinks at home with his equally awful girlfriend." I thought, remembering the empty bottles I'd seen. "And he's talking about getting a job." Mom continued breathlessly. "Mia's cousin knows someone at a tech company. This could be his big break." I'd heard about Ryan's big breaks for years. They never materialized. My next visit home started normally me struggling with grocery bags while trying to unlock the door. But the scene inside made me stop cold. The house looked like a bomb had gone off. Dishes formed mountains in the sink. Takeout containers littered every surface, and clothes were scattered like confetti. Mia lounged on the couch, tapping her talons on her phone screen. "You live here rent-free and eat my food," I said, setting the bags down firmly. "The least you could do is clean up after yourself." Mia looked up with obvious irritation. "I'm not your maid. Talk to your brother if you have problems. My brother doesn't pay the bills here." "I do." She rolled her eyes and went back to her phone. "Whatever." I found Mom in the kitchen, organizing coupon clippings she'd never use. Something felt off about the whole situation. "Mom, what's really going on here?" She couldn't meet my eyes at first, nervously shuffling papers. Then her expression changed, hardening into something defensive. "If you must know," she said carefully, "I've been thinking about the future, about what happens when I'm gone." "What do you mean?" "I mean this house, my assets. Ryan will need security. He struggles more than you do." The implication hit me like ice water. "Are you saying you're leaving everything to Ryan? He needs it more," she said, finally looking at me. "You're doing fine on your own. You always have. I'm the one helping you survive right now. I send money every month, and I'm grateful," she said quickly. "But Ryan is different. He needs more support." Support, my voice rose. "Mom, he's 22 years old and has never held a job. When exactly is he going to start supporting himself? Don't talk about your brother that way." Her familiar defensiveness kicked in. "He's trying. It's just harder for some people." "What's hard about getting up and going to work like every other adult?" Her face twisted with frustration. "You've always been jealous of Ryan. Even as children, you resented the attention he needed." "The attention he needed? What about the attention I needed? When did you ever put me first? That's different," she snapped. "You were self-sufficient. Ryan needs guidance." "At what age does the guidance end and personal responsibility begin?" "You wouldn't understand," she said coldly. "You've never had his struggles. I stared at her, finally seeing the truth I'd avoided my whole life. In her mind, Ryan would always be the victim who deserved everything, and I would always be the strong one who deserved nothing. I need to go, I said quietly. Alex. Wait, but I was already walking out. As I reached my car, I heard Mia's voice from inside. Good riddance. Maybe now we can have some peace. The drive home passed in a haze of anger and clarity. All those years of hoping she'd finally see me, value me, choose me, it was never going to happen. Ryan would always be her golden child. No matter how much he failed, or how much I succeeded. Back in my apartment, I stared at my phone screen showing the pending monthly transfer $800 to Mom's account. For the first time, I really looked at what that money could do for me instead. A better apartment, a car that didn't need constant repairs, an emergency fund, a future. My finger hovered over the cancel button. 1 month later, Mom called. The money didn't come through, she said without preamble. Did something happen with your bank? I canceled the transfer, I said calmly. Dead silence. Then why would you do that? Because I realized I've been funding Ryan's lifestyle while he contributes nothing. That stops now. You can't be serious, her voice cracked with panic. We're counting on that money. Then Ryan needs to get a job. He's 22. Mom, it's time. But he's not ready. He needs more time. He's had his whole life to get ready. How much more time does he need? You don't understand, I understand perfectly. I interrupted. You've decided Ryan deserves everything and I deserve nothing. Fine. But I'm not paying for that decision anymore. That's not true. I love you both equally. No. You don't. And you know what? That's okay. But I'm done pretending it doesn't hurt. And I'm done sacrificing my future for his comfort. The line went quiet, except for her breathing. If you do this, she said finally, I don't expect to be welcome here anymore. I wasn't welcome anyway. I replied, goodbye. Mom. I hung up and blocked her number. The guilt lasted about a week. Then I started sleeping better than I had in years. The $800 went into my savings account, and for the first time, I began planning for my own future instead of funding their dysfunction. Ryan tried calling a few times, leaving angry voicemails about how I was destroying the family. I blocked him too. Mia even attempted to reach me through social media, writing dramatic posts about family loyalty and abandoning people in need. I ignored them all. 6 months later, I heard through Aunt Linda that Ryan had finally gotten a job at a grocery store. Took him 3 weeks to realize nobody else was going to pay his bills, she said, with satisfaction. Mom had moved to a smaller apartment and was getting by on her pension. She's actually doing fine, Linda reported. Turns out she didn't need as much help as she thought. I wasn't surprised. The crisis had always been manufactured, designed to keep me trapped in their dysfunction. These days, I drive past their old neighborhood sometimes on my way to somewhere better. I never stop, never look back. The $800 I used to send them now goes toward my own life, a better apartment, a reliable car, investments in my future. I sleep peacefully, knowing Jake would be proud of me for finally putting myself first. He always said I deserved better. It just took me 30 years to believe him. The golden child was finally on his own. And for the first time in my life, so was I. A story too. I was treated like a servant by my parents. Mom expected me to cook, clean, and bow. And she grinned and said, "Your sister's friends are spending Christmas here. IT's only 25 people." I grinned. I took a flight to Florida that evening. Her face went white when they got there and discovered the kitchen was empty. But the worst shock was yet to come. I'm 32 years old and go by Lily Sullivan. While my younger sister Sarah lived like a princess, I was treated like their personal servant for 15 years by my rich parents. Every family get-together and holiday, I stayed in the kitchen while she hosted visitors. However, something inside of me eventually broke on Christmas Eve when my mother insisted that I prepare meals for 25 of Sarah's most significant friends with just a day's notice. Our family dynamic wasn't the only thing altered by what followed. It revealed a secret that had everyone utterly stunned, even a CEO of a Fortune 500 company. Please pardon me before I tell you about the night in December when everything changed. From being the household maid to having my phone rang when I was meticulously folding things in my bag in my Manhattan apartment. I knew this would not be a nice discussion. As soon as the caller ID displayed Mom, every surface in our family house in Connecticut was adorned with sparkling Christmas decorations. Since I was 17, I had been the one hanging them annually. So I knew. My mother, Lily, please cancel any foolish arrangements you may have for tomorrow. Margaret didn't even say hello. There was nothing that could be argued with the dominating tone in her voice. I folded my business blazer some more. What will take place tomorrow, Sarah is throwing a dinner for her networking group on Christmas Eve. Lily, very significant individuals. 25 visitors, including Pinnacle Corporation executives. I could almost hear her smile over the phone as she stopped. To begin cooking, you must come by midday. The menus are already designed and include 7 main meals and 10 sides. I clenched my fingers around my phone. Sarah's social circle. My younger sister was a public relations professional. Of course. And she never missed a chance to show off her connections. Your sisters are forming valuable relationships that will help this family. Mom, you need to be appreciative of assistance. Her remarks were as sharp as ever. You don't seem to be involved in any other activities. I looked at my laptop, which was glowing with an email from Victoria Chen, the CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality. I wish my mom had known. Use the fine china, she said. Lily, this isn't your typical crowd. These individuals are important people. Apparently not like me. She replied, I'll text you the menu. Don't make us seem bad. The line died. I glanced down at my Florida aircraft ticket. 8:00 p.m. is the departure time. Tomorrow, my hand had stopped shaking altogether. I had finally figured out the difference between their emergency and my priority. After 15 years of this, I sat on my bed as a wave of unpleasant memories washed over me. They were invisible for 15 years. Unless they were in need of anything. Since I was 17. Every Thanksgiving, Sarah has entertained our guests while Lily has taken care of the food. Lily is in between jobs again, every Christmas. But at least she helps out in the kitchen. At every family get-together, Sarah was presented as our accomplished public relations daughter. While I was just Lily's, she is assisting. The worst family gathering had been the previous one. There were 200 guests at the country club for Sarah's engagement ceremony. Sarah held court in a $3,000 outfit our parents sent her. And I had spent 14 hours making canapes. In fact, my mother had chuckled when one of the visitors inquired what I did for a living. Lily cooks well, but she lacks Sarah's social abilities. I got up and went to get my second suitcase from my closet. Inside was the contract that would alter everything, meticulously preserved in a leather folder. At the top, the name of my business, Stellar Events, was embossed in gold. I had purposefully avoided using Sullivan in the name. I quietly created my empire for 5 years. Fortune only wanted me to work like a slave over their stove. And we had 50 people spread over 3 sites, with a customer list that included exclusive resorts. In order to get a $2 million deal, I had a meeting. It buzzed on my phone. The text from Sarah, "You're cooking tomorrow?" Mom says, Don't make a mistake. There will be notable individuals present. I took another look at my airline ticket. Flight 447 is scheduled to leave at 8:00 p.m. for Fort Lauderdale. I said, not this time. To the empty room. They would have to solve things on their own for once. As I packed further, I couldn't help but notice the irony. I had a plane to catch. I had spent too much time ignoring two obvious indicators that told me precisely where I stood in this household. The way they presented me was the first clue. My father genuinely shared our success story with his golf companion Sarah at the country club dinner last month. Lias between opportunities. Even though I had just signed a $500,000 deal. And they saw me, as always failing and jobless. They never inquired about my job, my new vehicle, or how I paid for my apartment in Manhattan. Their presumption was so thorough that my mother had chuckled when I had considered going on a work trip. What kind of business are you now referring to as your little culinary hobby? Even more obvious was the second indication. When I went home last summer, I discovered that Sarah's excess clothing had been stored in the bedroom I had used as a youngster. All of my belongings, including books and awards, were stored in the basement of the property. My mother had stated, as if it were clear, that Sarah needed the space. Her career is being developed in PR. Image is important. At the same time, our parents had remodeled the whole third floor for Sarah, giving her a walk-in closet and a home office. The message was quite obvious. An investment was one daughter. The other couldn't be seen. Recalling last week's corporate Christmas party, I zipped my luggage shut. When I got the Pinnacle account, my staff surprised me with a party. 50 individuals that admired my leadership and recognized my worth. Mom texted me again, and my phone glowed. Remember to use the truffle oil. Their palates are sophisticated. These folks. As if I didn't often cater CEO and celebrity functions. Why would she know? Though she had never inquired. The fact that they had never even been interested was the worst wound. My family had developed their own story, and never once in 5 years did someone inquire. So, Lily. What exactly do you do all day, Lily? Poor thing. Incapable of maintaining a job. Lives in a studio flat. In reality, it was a condo with 2 bedrooms. Most likely living off of Grandma's funds. I had used that money to fund my company. She can cook. At least, I had 3 executive chefs working for me. I took my phone out and looked through my pictures. At a charity banquet that I had prepared, I was shaking hands with the mayor. My crew came there to celebrate the inauguration of our 3rd store. The Hidden Revolution in Luxury Catering. Hospitality, Quarterly, published a feature piece on me. I hadn't shared any of these events with my family. Early on, I had discovered that success without their consent posed a danger. When I once discussed getting a significant customer, my mother quickly turned her attention to Sarah's most recent energy drink PR campaign. With a touch on my palm, she had murmured, "At least you're useful in the kitchen." As if I were a youngster who had drawn a particularly lovely painting, I opened my laptop and saw the dashboard for my business. Without any financial assistance from my parents, Stellar Events were founded, constructed without the Sullivan name. It prospered without their consent. They would never be aware that tomorrow's earnings alone will surpass Sarah's earnings for the previous 6 months. Forbes wants to include you in their 40 under 40 edition. My assistant contacted me today. They are particularly intrigued by your account of starting the company without the help of your family, without assistance from relatives. My family hadn't just stopped supporting me. If only Forbes knew the whole truth. They had deliberately chosen to ignore the fact that I was outside of their kitchen. If you've ever been treated as if your accomplishment is unimportant or felt invisible in your own family, next, you'll see why I did what I did. Please leave a remark below. Have you ever had to keep your accomplishments a secret from poisonous relatives? Knowing that I'm not alone in this is really comforting. And I read every remark. Additionally, if this content is helpful to you, please think about subscribing. We are creating a community of individuals who will not allow others to dull their light. Let me now share with you the SMS message that made all the difference when a calendar reminder chimed on my phone. Reality struck me hard. I would lose all I had earned for if I remained mute and played the servant tomorrow. The agreement with Pinnacle Hospitality wasn't your typical contract. It was the agreement, $2 million. The exclusive right to cater at their 5 resorts in Florida. And a collaboration that would make renowned events known throughout the country. The meeting took place at 9:00 a.m. on December 26. Not negotiable. The CEO of Pinnacle, Victoria Chen, had been quite explicit. Lily, I'm taking a plane back to Singapore on the 27th. The board will choose our second option if we can't settle this in person. My opponent, our second option, has been circling this deal like a vulture. However, money wasn't the only factor. 50 workers were depending on me. My head chef, Maria, had just made an offer on her first home because of the growth this contract would provide. My operations manager, James, intended to send his children to better schools. My dream was no longer the only one. They also owned it. I retrieved my bank records. Yes, I was successful. But everything would be different because of this deal. It made the difference between being a national player and a regional success. The type of chance that only comes once in a lifetime. My phone rang. It was Lily, my CFO. Just making sure you'll be at the resort tomorrow night for Victoria's team's premiating supper. I responded, glancing at my packed luggage. I'll be there. Excellent. In particular, Victoria expressed her excitement at meeting the CEO who created such a remarkable business without any family resources or ties. She said that without family resources or connections, such genuine accomplishment is uncommon. If only she were aware of how accurate that was. My mother sent me an email. Then my phone rang. The Christmas Eve menu's urgent topic line. As I opened it, I felt sick to my stomach. 5 guests with dietary requirements. 7 main meals. And 10 sides. Assortment of desserts and wine pairings. The amount of information was astounding. Every dish, garnish, and serving plate had been meticulously designed by her Frome and Enerol. Make use of the silver with the monogram she had inscribed and the Waterford crystal. Lily. These folks are significant. Victoria from Pinnacle Corporation is one of them. She could be useful for Sarah's work. I almost dropped my phone. Victoria. My parents were supposed to host Victoria Chen. My mother had included a guest list, which I glanced over quickly. It was there, as plain as day. Pinnacle Hospitality's CEO is Victoria Chen. As I pondered this inconceivable coincidence, my pulse raced. My parents' residence was set to host the same lady I had met in Florida, who was expected to be served by their jobless daughter. There was another SMS from Sarah. Victoria Chen will be present. According to Mom, she is quite good at entertaining. I want to offer her my PR services. Don't let your amateur cooking make me feel embarrassed. Amateur cooking. I recently provided catering for 500 guests for Victoria's work retreat. She had never met me in person last month, even though we had dealt with everything via my executive team. That was supposed to happen tomorrow. The option weighed heavily on me as I sat down on my bed, either remain and serve the lady who was going to make me a billionaire by acting like a failure, or go and face the wrath of my family while securing my future. I got a notice from Uber. The time of your transportation to JFK Airport is 6:30 p.m. tomorrow. I took another look at the menu, then at my contract. and last at my airline ticket. There had never been a more obvious decision. I made up my mind. I grabbed my cell phone and called my mom. On the first ring, she responded, "At last? I began to fear that you were not paying attention to this. I can't do it." "Mom." Quiet. Then she became abrasive. "You can't. What do you mean I'm traveling on business? Tonight, I'm taking a plane to Florida. Avoid being absurd." She raised her voice. "What kind of company would you be running? A crucial meeting. In fact," she laughed. "Stop being self-centered. Lily, this is necessary for your sister. Sarah could employ a whole catering crew. How much money are you aware of the cost of that?" I refrained from speaking. It was almost too much irony for her to question me about catering prices while speaking with someone who ran a catering business. "First, family," she yelled. "Or are you too self-centered to see that I completely get it? When you need anything from me, family comes first. Yudara, Mom. How recently have you inquired about my life? We are aware of your life. You live in that little flat in between jobs. I work as a CEO. One more chuckle. This one is harsh. What is a CEO? Your made-up business. It's real. I employ 50 people. Enough with the delusions. Lily, this is what Sarah needs. You owe us. I owe you. You were reared by us. You were fed and housed in our house while I was treated like a hired servant. You're exaggerating. Do you need to do anything else? Spend Christmas sitting by yourself in your apartment? I checked my ticket for business class. My flight is at 8:00 p.m. Stop it. No. Don't bother returning if you go. Between us hung the menace. It was the same one she had used many times. It usually worked. Usually. I gave in. Then, I suppose, this is farewell. I muttered. You're not serious. I've had enough of serving the family. Until you need anything. Mom. I'm done hiding. Are you ungrateful? I ended the call. I had trembling hands. But it wasn't out of wrath or terror for the first time in 15 years. It sprung from liberty. Sarah's messages flooded my phone right away. Just what did you do? Mom is losing her mind. Come on over here and stop being so theatrical. After shutting off my phone, I carried on packing. They would work things out. When they had to, they always did. To correct one problem, I switched my phone back on. It rang right away. What's wrong with you? Sarah, she screamed. Mom is phoning all of your relatives to tell them that you've gone insane. On Christmas Eve, I had a business meeting. Quit lying. I'm telling the truth. Isn't this related to the pointless altercation from last month? I got your room from Mom. Years ago. Sarah, you turned my room into your wardrobe. And no, this has to do with my real job. Which profession do you sometimes cook? I run a catering business. Yes, you do. Condescension was evident in her tone. I'll pay you to cook. You see, how is $200? It almost made me giggle. I charged $5. 000 per day for my personal chef services. She would never know. This cannot be negotiated. I'm not coming. Sarah, Mom is going to reject you. She can choose to do it. Are you going to spoil Christmas? Really sabotage my chance to network hire a caterer once Victoria Chen arrives. On the eve of Christmas, are you crazy? Nobody is available. I went to the counter in my kitchen, where I had left a notebook earlier. On it, along with their 24-hour hotlines, I had written about 3 caterers that dealt with last-minute crises. I wasn't entirely callous, but it was more than they deserved. I wrote some numbers on a note that I placed on my kitchen counter. I'm not going to go to Manhattan just to pick up your pointless letter. Next, look for emergency catering services on Google. You're being self-centered. I'm acting professionally. It is necessary for me to travel for work. What company? She let out a scream. Give up acting like someone you're not. The notice for Uber appeared. In 2 hours. Your driver will come. Sarah. I have to go. You're dead to us if you do this. You already can't see me. What's the distinction? I ended the call and switched off my phone entirely. I put the letter with the catering numbers prominently displayed on the kitchen counter in case they happened to walk by. I placed a duplicate of my business card, the one that said, Lee Sullivan, CEO. Stellar Events next to it. They refused to come and wouldn't see it. The plane took off from JFK at precisely 8:07 p.m. And I finally let out a breath. But at least I'd know I tried to help. Even as I made my first self-choice. Below me, Connecticut vanished into a haze of lights. And somewhere down there, my mother was undoubtedly frantically calling all of my relatives, portraying me as the ungrateful daughter who left family on Christmas. I took out my laptop and opened the Pinnacle contract again. And there it was. Clause 15. Sen. CEO presence required for all strategic planning sessions. Victoria had insisted on that clause herself, stating that she only worked with hands-on founders. I received 17 new messages from her team, all of which confirmed the schedule for tomorrow, including the formal presentation at 9:00 a.m. on the 26th and the pre-meeting dinner at 7:00 p.m. I clicked on Victoria's most recent email, and I'm looking forward to finally seeing you in person. Lily, I've been watching Stellar Events' progress for 2 years, and your reputation comes before mine. The contract signing will happen soon after awaiting board approval. Forbes wants to know if they can mention your family background in the article. They're interested in the built from scratch without family support angle. If only she knew that the same woman she was about to partner with was supposed to be serving her dinner at my parents' house right now. My assistant texted me over the plane's Wi-Fi. When my family realized who I really was, the contract would be signed, and the news would be public. I typed back, telling them, the article runs on December 27th. Correct. Yes. It goes live at midnight on the 26th. It was perfect timing. I pulled up the draft of the Forbes article they had sent for approval, with the headline, From Invisible to Invaluable. How Lily Sullivan created an empire in catering without using any family funds. It seems that time was a source of amusement for the universe. I was in awe at the ultimate resort room. There was a bottle of champagne on ice, with a handwritten message, and windows from floor to ceiling looked out over the Atlantic. Hello, Miss Sullivan, eagerly awaiting our collaboration. Chen. Victoria. I put my luggage down and looked at my phone. My mother missed 47 calls, 18 from Sarah, even 3 from my father, who is normally quiet. I didn't listen to the voicemails before deleting them. Instead, I found something that made me grin when I opened my inbox. The Forbes article's final proof was provided with a message from my PR manager. You've been transferred to the cover story. Every newsstand will have it on December 27. Forbes cover would feature my picture, which is professional and self-assured, and not at all like the invisible daughter my family knew. Everything was covered in full in the article. How I had developed the business without investors. How I had decided to thrive without relying on my family's connections. And how I had begun with $5. 000 saved from working at waiting tables. I saw another email from Victoria herself. I'm going to be late for supper tomorrow. Lily. Originating directly from a Connecticut social duty. I hope that's okay. Connecticut. She was at my parents' place at the moment, most likely wondering where the extravagant meal that had been promised was. Once again, my assistant texted, the reporter for Forbes wants to know whether you'll talk about how your family has responded to your achievement. I considered it. Inform them that when everyone else finds out, so will my family. When the magazine was released, boss, that's freezing. I adore it. Observing the waves crashing against the coast, I made my way to the window. I had signed the largest contract of my career in under 12 hours. My visage would be in every Forbes magazine throughout the nation in only 36 hours. Retaliation isn't always the greatest kind of retaliation. They never saw this triumph coming. Chaos poured in Connecticut as I slept soundly in my Florida suite. The calamity had happened just as I had been told in the writings I read the next morning. 6:00 p.m. My mother had known I wouldn't be arriving on Christmas Eve. The kitchen was still spotless and deserted. In an hour, 25 hungry visitors would arrive, and the refrigerator was only supplied with basic items. The tale was recounted via Sarah's frantic messages. Mom is going crazy. She's phoning every eatery within 50 miles. It's all closed. How could you harm us like this? At 6:45 p.m., my father had finally texted, "Your mom is experiencing a breakdown. Please think again." 7:00 p.m., the visitors had begun to arrive at sharp PR specialists, investment bankers, and above all, Victoria Chen, CEO of Pinnacle Hospitality. They arrived anticipating a lavish feast prepared at home on Christmas Eve. The type my mother had spoken about for weeks, the text from Sarah at 7:23 p.m. "We are placing an order for pizza. Pizza. Do you realize what you've done?" Lily, 7:07 p.m. "Mom recently informed everyone that you have always been untrustworthy. She is blaming thank you for everything." At 8:15 p.m., the pizza had come. One chain was unable to manage the last-minute order, so 3 boxes from Domino's and 5 boxes from Papa John's were ordered. My mother had to serve delivery pizza on her Waterford Crystal after boasting for weeks about her daughter's intricate cuisine. The image was drawn by Sarah's increasingly desperate letters. Victoria Chen seems repulsed. Individuals are departing. Sarah's last text message was sent at 9:03 p.m. Mom informed everyone, "You're mentally unstable." She also remarked, "You've always been the family disappointment. The party is ended." Everyone departed early. Victoria Chen left before dessert was served. "Mom claims that you are dead." Setting my phone aside, I placed an order for breakfast from room service. I would be dining with Victoria Chen in 3 hours. I pondered if she had brought up the catastrophe at my parents' place. I pondered if she had known my last name. Above all, I pondered the expression on my mother's face upon hearing the truth. At 7:00 p.m., the pre-dinner meeting was set to take place at Pinnacle Resort, have ready to seal the transaction of my life. I showed there early and dressed in my finest suit. I was surprised when Victoria Chen entered with a tale to Shirley. Despite her seeming fatigue, Lily gave me a cordial greeting. "I must say I'm sorry for being late. I just arrived via plane from Connecticut's most strange Christmas Eve party." My pulse rate remained constant. I had rehearsed for this. What happened? I wonder. This is unbelievable. Shaking her head, she took a seat. It was meant to be a sophisticated dinner party, and I was invited. Actually, you and the hostess, Margaret Sullivan, have the same last name. Coincidentally, she had promised this exquisite lunch that her daughter had made. Without saying anything, I nodded. When we got there was complete commotion. The hostess is rushing to get pizza. The kitchen is vacant, and no food has been cooked. Pizza for company CEOs and executives. She had spent months attempting to win over others. It must have been uncomfortable. Things worsen. She spent the whole evening disparaging her elder daughter, calling her a disgrace to the family, psychologically ill, and untrustworthy. It seems that this daughter just vanished. Even though she was supposed to prepare everything, Victoria showed me a picture shot during the party after taking out her phone. My mother was there with pizza boxes on display on her priceless mahogany table, her cheeks flushed with shame. Sarah, the younger daughter, continued to attempt to save things. But it didn't work out. As she served Papa John's on porcelain dishes that were worth more than most people's rent, she genuinely made an attempt to sell me PR services. Have you been there long? The hostess neglected to host for 20 minutes after the pizza came because she was too preoccupied with apologizing and placing the blame on the daughter who wasn't there. Yes, it was. Victoria hesitated, trying to find the right words. It was the most unprofessional night I've ever had. According to the widow, her daughter generally merely cooked for them since she was too dim to get a real job. I keep my hands firm on my portfolio. It's awful, isn't it? Treating relatives that way is unthinkable. Victoria pulled out her menu. Let's talk about something nicer now. Your amazing business? Everything falls apart dramatically in the following section. You're going to be quite happy if you've been waiting for the time when truth meets consequences. But first, if you were in my shoes, how would you have responded? Would you have told Victoria who you were at that moment? Or would you have waited for a better opportunity? For that one instant, everything changed. The next morning, December, I was prepared to present to Victoria and her colleagues on the 20th and 6th when I stepped in the boardroom of Pinnacle. The deal was up for negotiation. Everything was going well, including the presentation. Until Victoria's aide entered the room carrying an iPad. You must see this. Miss Chen. On LinkedIn, a picture from the party in Connecticut is going viral. I saw Victoria's expression shift from interest to perplexity to outright disbelief when she accepted the iPad. She glanced up, then back at the television, and then back at me. Slowly, Lily said, "This image is from the Connecticut home of Sullivan." She swung the iPad in my direction. A family picture from last Thanksgiving, in which Sarah posed in front of our parents while I stood in the background, hardly visible, had been placed on someone's Facebook. Is this you? I gave a nod. Indeed. Sullivan. Margaret. Is it your mom, indeed? There was utter silence in the room. Victoria's group looked at each other. The legal counsel stopped writing. The lady who labeled you psychologically ill, untrustworthy, and unfit for employment. Is it your mom, indeed? Victoria got up and went to the window before turning back to me. That supper, which ended up being a pizza catastrophe, was intended to be prepared by you. You were here to meet with us. But I was. I refused to be treated like a servant in favor of my business. Victoria's phone displayed another app. According to your mother, you're a failure who can just cook and don't have a job. She is unaware of spectacular happenings. The fact that you are a CEO is unknown to your own mother. She didn't inquire. Victoria took a deep seat. Let me know what you mean. Your family is unaware that you are the owner of one of the East Coast's most prosperous catering businesses. Not at all. They are unaware of your 3 sites, 50 staff, and the $2 million deal we are about to sign. They believe I live in a studio apartment and am jobless. James, Victoria's business partner, raised his voice. I apologize. But I need more information. Last night's pizza server on Waterford Crystal had no clue her daughter could have provided 5-star catering for the whole occasion. She has never inquired about my occupation. She just believes that I am a failure. Victoria burst out laughing. It was a real laugh. Not a courteous one. God. Oh God. The whole evening was devoted to her griping about her daughter's displeasure. You are the CEO I have been attempting to collaborate with for the last 2 years. And that daughter is you. She glanced at her group. I believe that the most intriguing deal of our professional lives is going to be signed. Gentlemen, Victoria took out her phone once again and opened Google. I must know something, she said, typing my name. Oh my God, she said, turning her phone to her team. Look at this. The first result was my quarterly feature on hospitality. The second was the news that I was nominated for a James Beard Award. And the third was an article about women entrepreneurs from the Wall Street Journal. Forbes just announced their 40 under 40 cover story for tomorrow. And her assistant hurried in again before I could respond, saying, Miss Chen, you'll want to see this. He projected the cover story onto the boardroom screen. And there I was, with a professional headshot front and center, with the headline that read, From Invisible to Invaluable, Lily Sullivan, Senchar, turned a $5,000 investment into a multi-million-dollar business by purposefully ignoring any family ties or assistance. Victoria read the sample aloud. How Lily Sullivan established a catering empire without a dollar of family money. This goes live tomorrow at midnight tonight. Your family still doesn't know. They will when everyone else does. James whistled low. Your mother is going to see her unemployable daughter on the cover of Forbes. Victoria's assistant was now scrolling through the article preview. I wanted to prove that success doesn't require a famous last name or family money. Sullivan says. When Victoria said, I need to make a phone call, she left the room, and we could see her through the glass talking animatedly on her phone. 5 minutes later, she returned with an odd smile. Here, you have a 6-month waiting list for events. Is that accurate? 8 months for peak season. You know, I told her that I was very dissatisfied with the event last night and that I would be moving my company to another location. She pleaded with me to change my mind, claiming that her elder daughter, Victoria, was solely to blame. I then informed her that I had just inked a $2 million deal with the most brilliant businesswoman I've ever met. Who, she asked? My phone, which I had set to silent, and displayed 47 missed calls in the last 3 minutes. All from my mother. Victoria held out her hand across the table and said, Your daughter, Lily Sullivan, CEO of Stellar Events. The room fell silent, and the sound she made was like all the air had been sucked out of her lungs. Victoria then hung up on me. The contract was signed. Champagne was poured, and my phone kept buzzing. So I excused myself to check the messages. I think we have a partnership to celebrate. My father texted me as I signed my name on the $2 million contract. Your mother just fainted. What the hell is Stellar Events? I walked back into the boardroom where Victoria and her team were still celebrating. Mom, please answer your phone now. Sarah, is this some sort of sick joke, Dad? Your mother is hysterical. Please call. Sarah, Victoria Chen just told everyone you're a CEO. Mom, this is cruel. Lily, pretending to be successful to humiliate us. Before I could reply, Victoria was snapping a picture of me with the signed contract. The Pinnacle executive team and the champagne. She typed quickly and hit send, saying, I just posted it on LinkedIn. My family thinks I'm lying about being a CEO. Victoria's eyes gleamed. Would you like me to send them something? We are thrilled to announce our 2 Mel Miller partnerships with Stellar Events and their brilliant CEO, Lily Sullivan. The tweet said, tagging Pinnacle Hospitality, Stellar Events, and Connecticut's Margaret Sullivan. Her business's superiority in upscale catering will improve Pinnacle's visitor experience at all of its locations. It's incredible to collaborate with someone that started their business from the ground up. My phone rang, and I answered on speaker with Victoria's permission. Sarah's voice was shaking, and I said, This can't be real. You've been a CEO this whole time. 5 years. Within minutes, the post had dozens of likes and comments, and industry leaders I'd worked with for years added congratulations. Previous clients also shared their experiences with stellar events. I'm not cold. Sarah, I'm done. Mom is having a breakdown. She's calling all her friends to try to explain. Everyone saw Victoria's post. That's not my problem anymore. How can you be so cold? I looked at Victoria and her team. All successful professionals, who had never once questioned my worth. You never asked? You all assumed I was a failure and treated me accordingly. Call me when you're ready to meet Lily Sullivan, the CEO, not Lily the cook. I hung up. I'm done being invisible until you need a cook. I'm done being the family disappointment. I'm done acting like I'm not as good as I am, to make you feel comfortable. But we're family. When I finally called my mother back that evening, she answered before the first ring ended. How could you do this to us? She was crying. Actually crying. Do what exactly? Humiliate us? Victoria Chen told everyone at the country club about your company. We all toasted. And for the first time in my life, I felt truly seen. People are calling and asking why we were unaware that our own daughter was successful. We asked you about my life. Mom. And you never once inquired about my work, apartment, or life. You assumed I was a failure. And for 5 years you have presented me as unemployed. I tried to tell you. When I told you 3 years ago that I had landed a significant client, you quickly brought up Sarah's energy drink PR campaign, saying, "That's nice. Dear, we don't have keys to your place. You've never requested to come to my apartment. And you might have salvaged the party. But Sarah's job is really taking off." I put catering details on my counter and went on quietly. Where is your family? My family needs a servant. My business needs a CEO. I chose my business. This is about spite. You don't even know where I live. That's not Mom. I have 3 locations, 50 employees, and have been featured in numerous publications. I was nominated for a James Beard Award. You assumed I was unemployed because it was easier than seeing me. The Forbes article is released at midnight. And the point is that I need nothing from you at all for the first time in my life. No. Mom, this is about respect for myself. I've created something wonderful. And I did it without any of you. Not your money. Not your connections. Not even your faith in me. What do you want from us? Nothing anymore. I heard my father's voice in the background. Margaret, perhaps we should listen. I'm done listening. You told Forbes about us. I told Forbes my truth. If that makes you feel embarrassed, perhaps you should consider why. You might want to get ready. It describes exactly how I built my company without family support. I hung up gently, feeling lighter than I had in years. The social repercussions came swift and brutal. But not for me. My mother yelled at him. You've destroyed this family. No. Mom, I've finally built my own life. Call me when you're ready to be part of it. Victoria Chen stated that they don't work with people who lack family values. And within 48 hours of Victoria's LinkedIn post, my family's meticulously cultivated reputation had fallen apart. Sarah's frantic texts and the country club gossip mill's overtime told the story. Pinnacle simply canceled our PR contract. The Forbes piece went viral in our Connecticut social circle. And Mom was kicked from the charity board. They maintained it had nothing to do with it. But everyone knows. Dad's golf mates are asking him how he didn't know his own daughter was a billionaire. Sarah's business lost $500. 000 a year. It was easier to build an empire in silence than to challenge their assumptions. My father finally called me directly. Something he hadn't done in years. Lily, I need to say something. I waited. The headline alone, created without a single dollar of family money, was damning enough. But the quote that truly destroyed them was buried in paragraph 3. Your mother was so sure of who you were supposed to be that I should have spoken up. I'm ashamed. It was the most honest thing he'd said to me in 15 years. "Why didn't you?" I asked. It was easier to let her narrative stand than to fight it. "I see now. That made me complicit. I knew you were doing something with catering. I saw the business registration years ago when mail got mixed up. Everyone wants to know how we could treat our successful daughter like hired help while praising Sarah for mediocre PR work. I never wanted to hurt anyone. Your success is amazing. And we missed it because we weren't looking. Dad, your mother lost 3 charity positions. And Sarah's firm is losing clients." He paused. "That pizza disaster is already country club legend Margaret Sullivan, who boasted about entertaining for years as Papa John's servant on Waterford Crystal, while her CEO daughter was signing million-dollar deals. Despite everything, I felt a twinge of sympathy. You didn't hurt us. Lily. We hurt ourselves. We made up a story where you were the failure and Sarah was the success. And now everyone can see we were blind." The Forbes story included a picture of me at the Pinnacle signing. Champagne in hand, surrounded by executives who appreciated my efforts. We deserved this. Every single consequence. My life burst in the greatest manner conceivable as my family faced with their social disaster. Within a week of publication, Stellar Events received over 200 inquiries from high-end clients who had been on the fence about working with the CEO who built an empire from scratch. My inbox was flooded with requests for interviews, speaking engagements, and partnership proposals. And Victoria Chen became my biggest ally. It was clear that this contrasted with my family's Thanksgiving photo, in which I lurked in the background like hired help. I hired 20 new staff to manage the expansion, elevating Maria to executive chef and James to COO. She introduced me to her network, telling everyone the story of the Christmas Eve disaster, with barely disguised joy. "Imagine," she would say, "having a golden goose in your home and treating it like a servant duck." 3 major contracts, totaling $10 million, came from those introductions alone. "You know what I love most about this company? You built it for people who were overlooked," Maria said during our expansion meeting. "You know what I love most about this company? You built it for people who were overlooked." She was right. I had unconsciously hired people like me, talented individuals who had been overlooked, dismissed, or underestimated. My assistant forwarded me a text from a reporter. The best part was getting invited to speak at Cornell School of Hotel Administration, my dream school, which my parents had said was too ambitious for me. "Your story is everywhere." Food Network wants to talk about a documentary working title, Invisible to Invaluable: The Lily Sullivan Story. The topic was building success without permission, making your own path in hospitality. I was going over my speaking notes when my mother texted me. "We need to talk. Please." I stared at it for a while, before archiving it and returning to my future planning because I had learned that the best way to deal with disrespect was to succeed. The best gift I could give myself, however, was boundaries. 3 months later, I consented to meet my family at a neutral place, a quiet restaurant in Manhattan, my territory. They appeared smaller in some way, and my father and mother appeared to have aged years. My mother had lost her imperious edge. They leaned in to read my terms, which I stated before anyone spoke, laying down a single sheet of paper. 1. Equal respect or no contact. 2. No more servant treatment ever. 3. Public recognition of my accomplishments. 4. Sincere apologies. Not just words. 5. Therapy. Family. And individual. This is not negotiable. I added, I'll be your daughter. Not your servant. Your sister. Not your staff. As Sarah spoke for the first time, my father cut in, saying, We're not here to blame you. We're here to ask for a second chance. I was envious. thinking, Lily, we've lost everything. My reputation. Sarah's clients. That's not my responsibility. Mom, we know, she said softly. I go to therapy now. We created a family system where someone had to be the scapegoat for everyone else to feel successful. I see how sick that was now, she said, adding that it was the most honest she had been in years. Before you could even resist. That position was given to you, without touching me. My mother reached across the table. I apologize. On 15 years of blindness. Not just on Christmas Eve. I made you a servant because I couldn't stand the thought that you may succeed more than the life I had planned for you. I examined each of them and said, I'll think about it. But know that if we rebuild, I won't be returning to the same family. She smiled for the first time in months. Fair. 6 months later, I hosted my first family dinner in my actual apartment. The 2-bedroom condo with a view of Central Park that they had never known existed. My team from Stellar Events catered it because I no longer cooked for family gatherings. They nodded. And Mom, you're paying full price if you ever want Stellar Events to cater anything. That was a line I would never cross again. The role reversal was obvious to everyone as my parents, and Sarah sat at my dining table being served by my employees, who referred to me as boss. However, this was not about retaliation. Rather, it was about the truth. I raised my glass of wine and said, I want to be clear about something. Success doesn't need permission. My mother, who had been in therapy for 4 months and had publicly apologized at the country club for being ignorant to my accomplishments, nodded. Although it didn't fix her image, it started to mend our relationship. Respect is non-negotiable, and self-worth doesn't need it. My father had become my unexpected ally, finally finding his voice after years of silence. And now he introduced me as my daughter, the CEO, with genuine pride. But the biggest change was in me. Sarah's PR firm had changed direction, and she had respectfully and professionally asked if Stellar Events might consider her for our PR needs. I had told her to submit a proposal like everyone else. And she did. And it was good. The Food Network documentary had been widely praised. My company had expanded to 100 employees across 5 cities. I was no longer hiding my success or lowering my light to please others. And I looked in the mirror every morning and reminded myself that I was Lily Sullivan, CEO of Stellar Events. Not the family servant. Never again. The fact that someone doesn't perceive your value doesn't make you less valuable. Keep that in mind. I appreciate you following me on my path from invisible to invaluable. If my story touched you, please share a time when you had to put your own needs ahead of those of your family. Your story may be just what someone else needs to hear today. If you think everyone should be treated with dignity, regardless of their position, then thank you for watching. Be careful and good luck.